most of the problems that we face in today's modern society, and even most of the problems that we face as individuals in modern society, are man-made problems.
Yeah.
These are not, we're starting to create natural disasters from our man-made problems. But, you know, when you think about the wars and the social injustice and the environmental impact and things like that, these are problems that we've manufactured ourselves. And so we're not going to get the solutions to these problems without addressing the attitudes that created the problems in the first place and are maintaining the problems. And so how do you get solutions, attitudinal solutions to, you know, these problems? And the hypothesis is that if more people engage in contemplative-based practices, and we can develop a higher level of mental and emotional fitness that parallels physical fitness, that maybe we'll get the kind of shift in awareness that we need in order to really have comprehensive solutions to some of these problems. And so the model that I was looking at was the physical fitness model. And what I saw develop over the last 30 or 40 years is that first you had scientific data that showed that physical fitness was critical for health and well-being. And that spawned a multi-billion-dollar physical fitness industry, so that now physical fitness facilities are ubiquitous in modern society. You know, you've got dozens of solutions. You've got equipment manufacturers, you know, that are developing all sorts of equipment and stuff like that. And, you know, it's in all your hotels and things like that. And so the thought was, is there any way to parallel that in the area of mental and emotional fitness? And so now we've got the science that is showing that mental and when you talk about mental and emotional fitness, it's important to drill down a little and say, well, what are you really talking about? And I think that it's the training of attention. You know, attention can be trained. How many times in your life, as you were growing up, has someone said, pay attention?
All the time in my case.
And how many times did they teach you how to do that?
0.
So you can learn that.
Yeah.
Emotional balance, you can learn that. Kindness, compassion, confidence, all of these, happiness, all of these are skills that can be developed in the same way that you can develop your biceps. And the reason that all of this has become plausible and interesting is neuroplasticity. In previous times, let's say 30 or 40 years ago, the scientific understanding of the brain was that we were born with a whole bunch of neurons, and the only thing that happened during our lifetime was that they died. And there were no neurons that were born during our lives, and they thought that the brain operated like a real estate development, so that if the visual cortex is back here and you're born without eyes, that it goes dark. And that each section of the brain had certain specific functions, and they did their function and nothing else. Well, once they developed brain imaging technologies where they could actually look at a functioning brain, they realized that that was all wrong. First of all, the reason that they thought that there were no neurons that were developed was because all of their experiments that were looking for cell division, which is what happens in the rest of the body, wasn't happening in the brain, so they figured no neurons. Now what they've discovered is that there are neurons that are being born all the time in the brain, new brain cells, but it's coming from stem cells rather than cell division. The other thing that they're realizing is that the actual synapse connections and the actual cellular structure of the brain is changing based on usage patterns. So for instance, if you've got, if you got everyone's got a motor cortex that
Right.
governs the way that your fingers operate,
Sure.
for instance. But if you're a virtuoso violinist, that part of your brain looks different than, you know, a
Than my
novice.
brain, for
Yeah,
example, yeah.
a novice. You know, they've done experiments on taxi cab drivers in London, you know, who are exercise, you know, or the part of their brain, you know, and so as people, as the neuroscientific community realized that that mental and emotional inputs could affect the structure of the brain and the way that the brain operated, when we came along and said, look, you're interested in how mental and emotional inputs affect the brain, wouldn't it be interesting if you had some of the Olympian athletes of mental training on your research team?
Right.
And they looked at that and they said, that sounds interesting.
Makes sense.
You know, and so we started building the credibility. And so, getting back to your question, my view is that this scientific data will stimulate a robust mental and emotional fitness industry, where there'll be a lot of experimentation on how to communicate and teach contemplative-based or practices that train attention, emotional balance, kindness, compassion, and these skills in modern society. And that's starting to happen. And so I expect that what will happen will be that we'll have a lot of innovation, and we'll analyze, you know, the effectiveness of this innovation, and we'll go through a very, very confusing time, chaotic time in the development of markets, and then there'll be a consolidation and an agreement of what works and what doesn't work, and how to, and the goal is twofold. First of all, a planetary awareness that mental and emotional fitness is critical for health and well-being, and the development of age-appropriate and culturally appropriate mental and emotional training tools for everyone to access, you know, throughout their lifetimes. Simple, huh?